The worst horror movie I ever saw was fucking great.
Hello and welcome to This May Hurt a Bit. My name is James Strayer and this is
John C. Myers.
And we are a horror franchise podcast discussing each film in popular and not so popular franchises. And today we are discussing The Omen 3, The Final Conflict from 1981. But most importantly, we have a special guest with us today. She is a writer and podcaster focusing on horror in the 90s. She's the host of Don't Point That Horror at Me, and she's a frequent guest on the Evolution of Horror podcast. Becky Darke, she's our returning champion. Hello and welcome, Becky Darke.
Hi, guys. Thank you for having me back.
Yeah, absolutely. It's been a while since you were last here. You discussed the first movie in the Saw franchise with us. Right. Yeah, and so now you're back. You're back because I was looking for a reason to have you back on, of course. And you had mentioned around Christmas time that you watch The Omen every year at Christmas. And I was like, I had been kind of wanting to cover that series. Oh, it's Halloween. Okay, yes. Gotcha. Halloween. I was doing the like Christmas, Satan, religious, like I thought that may have been your thing. But no, I was just like, well, we all love the original Omen, but has Becky seen all the sequels, which is our necessary thing here. So what's your experience with the sequels? Or most importantly, what gets you going about the original Omen?
So The Omen is my top number one absolute favorite ride or die horror film of all time. Like,
awesome.
As you said, I revisit it every year at least once. It's one of the first horror films I ever saw. I think it's one of those that my parents were kind of comfortable letting me watch when I was that bit younger because it's got like proper actors in it.
It's classy.
And, it's like, it's Gregory Peck and David Warner. It's like, this is a proper movie.
Yes,
it doesn't matter that there are people being impaled with spikes and having their heads lopped off by planes of glass,
right.
So it was a really early kind of horror experience for me and really, really formative. And the other thing that I think kind of really, that I found very evocative was that some of it was actually filmed like just down the road from where I lived.
Oh, nice.
As a kid.
Yeah.
So I grew up in Farnham in Surrey, which is in like the southeast of England. And the sequence in The Omen where they drive up in the car to go to the wedding is filmed at Guildford Cathedral, which I would drive past very regularly. And there's also a scene at the end, like right towards the end of the film, where it comes over the police radio that they're in pursuit along Seven Hills Road, which was basically the road that led to my nan's house.
Oh,
and
nice.
I think there was something about that, like, I guess understandably, that really kind of struck a chord with me. This idea, like it made it more scary because it was like, oh my God, this is happening like just down the road. Like this is horror in the real world.
Yeah. Satan has come to your community.
Exactly. Yeah. Satan Claus is coming to town.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, The Omen is, as I say, like it's my ride or die. I absolutely adore it. I'm also kind of known, if you listen to some of my other podcasts, for being a bit of a one and done. So,
yes.
You guys are a franchise podcast. And actually, a few years ago, I would have been your worst possible guest because I hadn't seen a lot of sequels. I would kind of watch a first installment of a horror film, either love or hate it, usually love. And I would kind of just stop there. And I think there was a certain amount of snobbery and cynicism or like cynicalness about horror sequels. And I remember the movie magazines and stuff that I used to read as a kid, the sequels would always get terrible ratings.
Right.
And I just kind of avoided them. I thought, at the time that they weren't worth my time. And it's really since being part of the horror community over the last sort of 5 or 6 years that I have realized that the reviewers don't know what they're talking about. And you should listen to fans and find out the ones that are worth watching. So I've now done like all of the Nightmare on Elm Streets, all of the Halloweens, or, you know, I've caught up on pretty much everything. And part of that process was finally being brave enough to watch the two, well, yeah, I've only seen two. So the two sequels, the main sequels to my favorite ever horror.
Right.
Yeah, that's a tough one when it's like you're already kind of skeptical about sequels, but it's sequels to a movie that you love. And you're like, they can't possibly do this right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And how did you find part two?
Pleasantly surprised, I would say, with both of them. I think, you know, my low expectation radar was at kind of peak capacity. And so I was pleasantly surprised. One of the things that I love most about the Omen films is the kills. Like there are always these incredible set pieces, and you get amazing set pieces through both 2 and 3. And for me, it's those that kind of make them stand out. There's a lot of stuff, kind of the plot heavy stuff that goes on that I don't really care about, but they've got so many good kill sequences that it makes it worth a watch.
Right. Yeah. And just the general vibe of like the late 70s, early 80s kind of thing always clicks with me. And maybe it is the kind of more classy element of it that does get me through even some of the more boring aspects of both sequels.
Definitely. And, you know, it is an interesting kind of narrative because it's telling a 3-part story, essentially. And I think that was another reason why I kind of avoided 2 and 3 for a while, was because the ending of The Omen, for me, is just perfection. You know, you get creepy little Damien turning around at the funeral and looking into the camera and smiling. And for me, that was kind of all I needed. Like, you know, I could imagine where the rest of the story was going to go. And I think that I didn't necessarily need it to be like told to me. But I do think that the follow-ups kind of do something really interesting with the continuation of that story, with him being kind of like in his adolescence in the second film, and then obviously like Sam Neill in the third.
Right.
I did enjoy on the Evolution of Horror when that I listened to your Omen episode, and that Mike talked about how we used to write fan fiction of The Omen and Rosemary's Baby. Yeah. That those were combined. That the baby in Rosemary's Baby was the Omen, and it's that same kind of thing where it's fun to take that idea and be like, what happens next? Which is basically what these sequels are, but sometimes that doesn't always work out.
Yeah.
And it's different for this kind of franchise. You usually just get different versions of the same story, whereas this is like one of the first ones that I can remember, you know, especially the ones that we've done. I guess Saw does continue the story. I mean, that's half the fun of those, like the soap opera element of it. Yeah, but like we see a horror villain from birth to death in the Omen, instead of just like redoing like Damien out there slashing people up. It's like, it's a true like growth.
Definitely. And you know, what you get with a lot of horror is you'll get an established villain in like their kind of full form. And then in later films, they'll kind of retrofit stuff, or they'll flash back, or they'll tell an origin story. And that can feel like sometimes it can take some of the power away from that villain. Like I'm thinking about someone like Michael Myers. You know, so many of the sequels for Halloween really kind of took away from his, like that thing of like, well, you're not supposed to know why he's doing that. That's why he's scary. So I guess what's nice about The Omen is, you're right, James, like it starts at the beginning and you just follow it through, which is kind of a different way around of doing it. And I think that's quite satisfying.
So let's start off. We are in Chicago, where the second movie took place, and a worker in some sort of mill is going through some wreckage, and he pulls from the rocks the ceremonial daggers that were last seen in the explosion of part 2. We get a quick montage of these daggers being sold at auction. always great to see like a creepy old man in an auction house bidding on something that he knows what it is and nobody else in the room is aware of what these things are.
Yeah, that whole first section is such a fun little, like, I don't know, maybe just think of like 1950s, like just fast montage, or you're getting the whole story. But I think it's nice to see a callback to those daggers. But then you also have, I think, a theme of this movie is sort of the holy becoming mundane, is that you have like these sacred things just being found in some rocks, and some guy, I don't know what I'm doing in them, and I guess they're worth something.
Right.
Like the people like figuring out and applying meaning to these daggers, and then I'll go ahead and buy them. And then you see them go back to the monastery from the first one, which I guess that was they just used the same shots from the first one for the exteriors.
Oh, wonderful. Hey, I mean, if you got that, it saves you a trip to Italy with your small B unit.
Yeah, we got that shot already. Let's just use
Damien, played by Sam Neill, is in a theater and he's watching what looks like kind of a PR reel or commercials of Thorne Enterprises. He doesn't like it because it's almost like too optimistic. It reminded me of the beginning of Scrooged.
Yes.
Where he's just
Such a
like,
great
bring
shout.
on the acid rain, all that kind of, because he literally says something to the effect of like, I need to see starving kids, instill the fear in people. Loved that.
their logo is awful. I couldn't stop looking at their terrible logo.
Thorne.
I guess that's a T in the middle with two globes on the side.
Right.
Okay. Looked like someone in an ill-fitting swimsuit. That's all I'm saying.
Find out that Damien is potentially going to be offered the post of ambassador to Great Britain. And in his office, he just pulls down a book. He reads from the Hebron, I believe they call it.
It's the Book of Hebron.
The older version of the Bible. And again, as said on previous episodes of this, I love this old Christian mythology, mysticism, like the unseen books of the Bible with the real mysteries. That stuff is always just kind of fun to me. Basically saying from the get-go, he's ready to start ushering in the end of days.
And out of the angel isle he shall bring forth a deliverer. The angel isle, the original Latin, has ex insula angelorum. England. The second coming. Only it won't be the beast that is destroyed.
His handler there, Harvey Dean, I believe his name is. I do enjoy the fact that just from the beginning, he just knows that he's like in the service of Satan.
I love this. I love this.
Yeah.
There's no kind of grim realization in him having to sort of be brought into the throng. He's just like, yeah, my boss is the like Antichrist. Let's just get on with it.
What was that job interview like? Was there a screening that was sent out? Like, check here if you're okay with working with the Antichrist.
The first interview was with a dog. And if that goes well, you get to meet Damien.
Yeah. Yes.
But I also like that he is not... It's unclear as to whether he's a true believer, because you'll see him at the meeting later. But like he seems a lot more just like a toady, like a lot more like, yeah, boss, whatever you say, boss, versus like, no, I firmly in like your Lance Henriksen's in the past, your Mrs. Baylock.
Oh, sure.
He just more seems like he's like, look, this is the smart money is on me siding with the devil. So
yeah, he's not so much an acolyte.
So I just thought that was kind of that added an interesting element to it, which. Well, obviously comes into play later, but rather than just have him be just a straight up, like, whatever you say, master.
Right.
Yeah. I think you're right, actually. Like, I don't get the sense that he would kind of throw himself off a balcony and hang himself, like, just because he's sort of professing his undying loyalty.
Right.
I reckon you're right. I think he's just a bit of a, paid hand.
Yeah. He's a career man.
Yeah. It was also the whole thing where he's the son of the devil, but he's still like figuring out what to do, sort of interpreting these old prophecies. And that kind of bummed me out a little bit. It's interesting that it's like, so you are the second coming of, you're the end of the world, and you're still just fumbling around trying to figure stuff out like the rest of us.
Yeah.
And I thought that was a little bit interesting, but also like a little, as you sort of mentioned, this sort of power diminishing thing where it's like, wait, you don't even know what's going on? That's a bummer.
Yeah. I guess Satan's just not going to make it easy for anybody. Even his kids are going to have to kind of, pull themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah.
Even if you do get to inherit a multi-billion-dollar corporation.
Yeah. He had to work for it. He had to kill all kinds of people.
Right. There you go.
So we cut to an older gent who we quickly realize is the current ambassador, the role that Damien really wants. He's the ambassador to Britain. He slowly starts to just tell everybody around him that he needs to hold a press conference. And then we see him rig up this overly ridiculous contraption connected to a shotgun.
It's basically like a shotgun trap that you get in a video game.
Or in a Saw movie.
Fair.
Yeah.
Yeah. So he wants to call a press conference, but make it so that the moment that all of his handlers and like 10 people walk in, he's sitting calmly at his desk. And as soon as the door opens, a shotgun blast takes out his face and he dies. So it's like a shotgun suicide where he's under some sort of spell.
Well, this is the first appearance of Hypno Rottweiler.
There you go. Yes.
Hypno Dog.
And in this one, he can men can get hypnotized now, which I think is a beautiful thing. Because the first one, it seemed like only women could get hypnotized by the dog. Men were just physically assaulted by it.
Yeah.
But I think you've come a long way, baby. Yeah. You can get hypnotized by dogs too.
Right. Even ambassadors.
It's wild how that set up, because the gun is underneath the desk and it like hits him right in the labial ridge, I think is what that's called. It's this whole contraption so he doesn't do it himself. Someone like by them opening the door commits this Rube Goldberg. He commits rubicide basically. Right. But I just think that's like, rather than just do it himself, the dog like hypnotized him to do like, what would be funny?
Yeah.
If you did it this way.
Yeah, it lacks the quiet dignity of a hanging, of himself. But I did enjoy
hanging yourself
this.
in front of children, the quiet dignity.
I did like this kill scene though, quite a lot.
It was gruesome. Like I'm always shocked by how gruesome these sequels are. I mean, the first one when the priest gets pinned with the pole, that's pretty rough. But just two, like the elevator death in 2 and this one. Rather bloody.
It's like it has to have kind of this element of spectacle, right? Like Damien is kind of all about the show.
I like that.
He can't just have him sort of blow his own brains out behind closed doors. Like there has to be witnesses, and for it to then be this huge sort of like splashed across the news and all of that. So I like that he rigs this contraption and there's a full audience for it.
Right.
It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, again, see, going back to the second and first movie, like why wasn't there a gruesome photograph in the newspaper on the next day? We loved so much when there was a photograph on the front page of the newspaper of a priest nailed down to the thing, but nothing like that here, unfortunately. Next scene, Damien meets with the president in the Oval Office and says he would like to be ambassador to Great Britain, but only for 2 years because he does plan on running for Senate in 84, and he also wants to be the president of the Youth Council. Now, here's where I started realizing that for so long, I had thought that Damien was going to become the president of the United States in this movie. I was very excited to see Sam Neill as the Antichrist, as the president. And I think it's just because I kept seeing the poster that shows Sam Neill, and then it's the seal of the president behind him on the poster that says the president of the U.S. And I was like, devil's the president. How fun. I was wrong. All right, I'll take it.
I kind of wonder about that just as we get further into the plot, where eventually like the second coming of Jesus is also in England.
Right.
That's sort of like, how in like UFO movies, they always come to America. And I just like the idea is that like, no, Jesus is definitely going to come to England. And the biggest threat to the world is an American coming to England. It's coming back to England.
Right.
But I also like here, like he's got this, they don't go into it too much, but this really starts to lay out that he's really obsessed with this youth thing.
Yes.
Because when he's on the TV show later, he talks about it, and they don't. I kind of like that's starting getting into the era. It's a little bit early, but the whole satanic panic of the 80s and trying to corrupt the youth, and then of course that's what he's after.
Right. D&D, heavy metal. Sam Neill, all those things will corrupt the youth.
Sam Neill creating D&D. I would watch that movie.
Yeah.
And I don't want to say that I side with the Antichrist, because that's traditionally like a bit of a controversial opinion.
Right, for some reason.
But when he does that speech in the interview about how, children have all of these great ideas.
We call them immature, naive. Wait till you're grown up, and then we'll listen to you. Now, what we really mean is, wait till you're grown old, and then you'll think the way that we do.
And you spend that intervening time kind of indoctrinating them into your own values. And so you're just making them into like little sheeple. And what we should do is, tap their potential while they've still got their fresh ideas before I was kind of like, do you know what, Damien? This is
Yeah.
this
You might be
actually
onto
kind of
something.
smart thinking. I'm kind of on board with this.
Right.
I can see how you got to be the son of the devil. It's a good thing.
Yes. A car does need 16 wheels for some reason, like any good child might think, playing with Legos. We need to start listening to these guys.
Every house does need like a water chute on the outside.
Yes. I saw Barbie. I would have to agree. Yeah. Getting to that television interview. So at a party, a woman who it looks like she has like a news magazine television show, kind of like 60 Minutes or something like that. That is very much dating me, I'm sure. I don't even know if 60 Minutes is still on the air, but
it's still around.
Okay,
James,
gotcha.
as a British woman, I will jump in here.
Gotcha. Please do.
She works for the BBC because at one point she tells a very British joke where she says, they don't call us the British Broadcasting Charity for nothing.
Aha, okay.
So she works for the B.
Yes, gotcha. All right. This is why we have Becky Darke on whenever we do it.
It's my main kind of contribution to this chat is my Britishness.
It's knowing what the BBC is.
Yeah.
Right.
I also love the two very British gentlemen that open that scene.
Is he really only 32?
No idea. Shouldn't be surprised. Americans always seem to think they can run before they can walk.
Like their wine, what?
That are talking about the wine. You have this weird little aside with these like Statler and Waldorf dudes.
Right.
That turns out to be made from soya beans? ?
I guess.
Soy wine? Yeah.
Yeah.
But
Is the idea that is satanic?
It sounds pretty evil.
I guess, yeah.
I guess that's the concept of Thorne Industries. They're into that agribusiness type of thing. It's funny that these days, I'm sure people would try a soy wine. I would try it. Not saying I would frequently buy it, but sign me up. Yeah. So at that party, it's basically like, please, I've got a show. I would really like you to come on and speak to me about your opinions of the youth. I think she says that she has a son who has heard about his opinions, which does kind of crack me up. Like, I love the idea that this like little boy in Britain somehow knows about the ambassador from the United States has like opinions on the youth. And this is before TikTok, for Christ's sake. So he ends up going on the show and starts discussing his ideas that Becky was talking about. And we see up on a catwalk above the studio stage, there is a man with one of those ceremonial daggers. I can barely even describe what happens in this kill scene because it is, is it successful? Maybe, maybe not, but it was extremely unique. I'll give it that. And evidently it took them 2 weeks to film this thing.
Really?
Yes. Evidently. Okay. So he wants to either dive at Damien from the catwalk somehow and stab him on
It's so high.
national news.
Ridiculously high.
But he gets like tripped up in some wiring or something, and he just kind of like has a total klutz move where he starts like swinging from the rafters, gets wrapped in plastic, then gets lit on fire as he's swinging back and forth. And there again, we've got a little Final Destination going, I think, in these kill scenes. I thought it was pretty magnificent myself.
It's great, but this is the first appearance of, or the first action appearance of the sort of the Federation of Monks that come after, they get the daggers and come after Damien, and their plan is to just do a whole bunch of Three Stooges shit at him and hope that it works. Because when this first happened, I was struck by like when the plastic is melting on him and it's disgusting
it's
and
grim.
like yeah. But then just like how ultimately silly, like Becky said, like he's so high up. What was the plan here? And like this is who's left against the forces of darkness. And we talked in the first Omen about how it's just the Catholics fucking up again and again. And they keep that trend going in this because these guys just keep biffing it in hilarious ways.
I would like to know what qualifications you needed to become a part of this monk task force. You know, like did you go through rigorous training?
Clown training by the looks of things.
Yeah.
Are you good at physical comedy?
Do you believe in Jesus and do you fall down a lot? I think that was
it. We got a space for you. Yeah. Damien starts to realize afterwards that this was an assassination attempt.
I found this on the studio floor. This is one of the 7 knives of Megiddo, the only thing on earth that can kill me.
Before we go further, I think I did skip over one big part that I wanted to bring up. Is it before the TV studio where they're walking through the park where they have all these people on soapboxes speaking?
Speaker's Corner.
The only thing that I want to say about that is I was so tickled to see that because I lived in London like 20 some years ago, and I went to Speaker's Corner a couple of times, and man, I was a lot younger then and, you know, thought it was funnier. Now I feel it kind of sad in some ways, but I have a bunch of photographs from some of the people, the pictures that I took with people. I remember debating a couple of them because that's a really smart idea. But that was one of those cases of like, I haven't thought about or seen that as a British landmark in a TV or film since then. I was like, oh my God, Speaker's Corner, there it is. Is that still there, Becky?
Yeah. Hyde Park.
In Hyde Park, right.
Hyde
okay.
Park, yeah.
So you can only imagine how much worse that's gotten in the age of the internet.
I mean, I say yes with such confidence and immediately doubted myself because who fucking knows nowadays with the British government, they might have like tear gassed them all out. But as
she
far
says
as
she
I know,
pushes her soapbox out of frame. I have opinions on all 10 Saw films. Like, please listen to me.
I also like in that, I mean, it seems like a fairly accurate representation of Speaker's Corner that you have one guy like complaining about how like, oh, they're shutting down all the theaters and we need to get people involved in the arts. And then one guy's talking about the end of the world. And then there's one guy that's like, I should be allowed to drink more. And
yeah, he's like, the
great.
pubs close too early and then they make you go home.
Yeah, hang out with my awful family. Fix this.
That was before the clubs opened at 11 p.m. in London.
Yeah, he's going to the after hours clubs.
Exactly. Damien does put together that last he knew the knives were still in Chicago. And this, you know, this is not so much a nitpicky CinemaSins type of thing, but if you knew that those were the only thing on earth that could harm you and it used to be in your possession, how have you just sort of oh yeah, last I kind of knew they were in Chicago, like under some rubble after an explosion? You'd think that he might, you know, have sent some people to gather them up, whatever. Right.
Do the Iron Man thing of like, well, I'll just collect, my Thorn Industries will take care of the rubble.
Oh, there you go.
Collect all the technology in there, all the knife technology.
Right. I do love the scenes that are coming up when Damien prays and starts walking around the crucifix of Jesus. So
good.
Just pump me full of Pinhead style biblical deep voice nonsense, and I'll listen forever.
The divinity of loneliness, the purity of evil, the paradise of pain.
He says, hell is the monotony of human existence. Like, I can listen to a good actor say this kind of crap all day long, and I loved it.
Save the world from a second ordeal of Jesus Christ and his grubby, mundane creed.
Yes.
Oh, yes, Sam.
Yes. This is where he starts referring to I guess the second coming of the Christ child as the Nazarene, which has its own like cryptic quality to it that I love. And he does reiterate in this scene that he came from a jackal. I'm still so happy that they are carrying this on as not a metaphor, but he came from a jackal, which is exciting to me.
Right, but at that point, like he's talking to the crucifix, because you have a statue of the person you hate in your house, and
I do. I've got two.
Yeah, I do. Who's enough?
This is not a good time, John.
Fair point.
Yep.
Fair, asked and answered.
Right.
But I like it, because he says,
But while you were born of an impotent God, I was conceived of a jackal.
I would not mention that.
Yeah.
I'd be like, yeah, my dad had sex with a dog, idiot. Like,
Right.
It's not that great.
Yeah.
Weird flex.
Yeah.
Right.
But just a great, there's not even like scenery chewing, but he's big. He's definitely big in
Yes.
this, but Sam Neill just does such a great job. And again, like, because he says the only hell is the monotony of human existence, it leads to my whole thing with so much of this movie is him being a manager and just trying to like get stuff in place to get this done and whatever. And it's a lot less grandiose than you'd think for what sort of the final conflict would make you think it would be. Mm-hmm. And I think that's part of it.
It's a lot of admin.
Yeah, it's a lot of admin. So it's just like he's in hell right now. It's like, I'm stuck doing this crap and I want to go party at the after hours club of hell with that one guy.
With that one guy from Speaking
Yeah.
Right.
And I like that a lot. It wasn't so much like mustache twirlingly evil, but it was very, very menacing.
One of the guys from Speaker's Corner is waiting for Damien outside of his office. And it's almost like Damien he wants to be attacked so he can snatch up the dagger. So he finally has like a goal that he's going after. He does actually, after years, want to collect up on these daggers. He's on a quest to get all 7 daggers back in his possession. And so he waits to get attacked and manages to get one of them back.
Amazing moment where he's like, they think it's him, the monks think it's him, and cover him with the coat.
Yes.
And then stab the shit out of him. And then when they uncover him, it's actually the old guy from Speaker's Corner. It's like, bait and switch.
Right. With no supernatural quality to that whatsoever. It's just a couple of bumbling monks in their mistakes. Yeah. So I do love that, even the son of Satan has to be like, I don't even need to like flex on this one.
These guys will take care of themselves, and they do, because then they're just like, oh no, and they manage to get themselves, like, they run away and fall off a thing and manage them to get themselves like trapped in a grate.
In an oubliette. Like, just
Yes. Yes.
I mean, you got to feel a little defeated if you're the son of the devil and you're like, this is it? This is what you got? Like, come on.
Right. I've been training for this long. I thought I had like a Moriarty level adversary here, and it's just a couple of it's the 2 Stooges now. It's not even 3. So yeah.
They killed the 3rd one.
Right.
But that's probably why he's so excited for the Nazarene, because he's like, look, these, it's like waiting for Goku to show up in Dragon Ball. It's just, I'm tired of these guys.
Damien ends up putting together that his assistant guy, who has just one son, had a kid born on the night that the 3 stars aligned. So up until this point, there's been some nerdy astronomer guys studying that there's going to be a confluence of stars in the heavens. Again, something that I'm always happy to see in a horror movie. I love when the heavens align for some sort of crap. I'd like it to be something more mundane. That'd be like really funny, but we're going to go with the Antichrist being born. But the idea is that these 3 stars in the heavens will align, and they introduce the idea that, another Christ child will be born. And of course, Damien does not like this.
Yeah, I like the idea that apparently there was a dead man switch when Jesus was killed, that like the stars over centuries have begun slowly aligning again to make a new one.
Right. Well, we need a ticking clock,
That's true. Yeah. And I like the way all those scenes are shot. Like they just have this very dramatic quality to them with the lighting and just some of the camera angles that makes just dudes looking at stars a lot more interesting.
In this scene, he decides, much like Herod from the Bible, that he needs to kill every baby boy that was born on that particular day and that particular time. And I just love so much that he just puts Harvey Dean in charge of it. He's just like, that's why we have people. Again, it's the middle management thing. Yeah. He's just like, just go murder a bunch of babies, will you? I don't have time for this.
You've got this, right? Like I'll just leave it with you, because I've got other stuff. So
I've got ambassador stuff to do.
Yeah. I've got some ambassadoring to do. And so the assistant is like, No. My son was born on the 23rd, actually. Yeah. It was like 10 to 12 on the 23rd, so he doesn't count. And Damien's like, sure. Yep. Okay.
Yeah. All right.
We'll see.
I'll trust your judgment on that.
Yeah. I hired the best, and I trust the best, so I'm going to trust you.
Well, because the stars align, and create this like explosion in the heavens. And Damien is freaking out about it. So already like he's losing sleep over it. Jesus ain't doing nothing yet, but Damien's all, so already Damien's on the back foot.
Yeah.
I think that's some of it too, is that like a lot of his power is just in delegation. You rarely see him do anything like super like magical on his own. Like in the second one, how he was psychically attacking people. This one is a lot more just like you said, just doing the admin and letting Dean take care of it.
Right. Damien attends a fox hunt in a scene that just goes on for a long time.
Oh my God.
And I don't have a particular affinity for foxes, but I'm not so into hunting myself, even though I understand some of it. But I didn't want to see any cute little foxes get mauled by also cute dogs at all.
No, if anything, this film is just confirmation that fox hunting is nothing but upper class white evil men.
Yeah. It's pretty heinous.
Children, apparently.
Yeah, children. Yeah. Still goes on over there?
So there was a fox hunting ban quite a few years ago now, which was very contentious with rich people.
I'm shocked.
Surprise, surprise.
Who came down against that one?
I know. And so they still do fox hunts, but they do it with like scented stuff. They like rub some fox musk on a rag and like still go out with the dogs. I don't know.
Wow.
Dude, like rich people are fucking weird. Like
they're so
just
bored.
really just bored and violent and just odd people.
Sure.
But yeah, it sort of comes up like every general election over here. It's still like a really kind of like hot topic. Like, oh, the Tories going to bring back fox hunting. It's like, they would love to.
Yeah. And does anybody else care about it? Are those like stupid, well, actually guys who are just kind of like lower class and it's like, well, actually it's a tradition and we need to keep, the fox hunting aligned.
It's actually like a surprisingly contentious issue.
Wow.
Like people feel really, really strongly about it kind of on one side or the other, which is why I think the ban kind of went through in the first place. It wasn't just like there were the rich people doing it. There was some environmental activists who were causing a fuss and everybody else was just like, meh. Like people do kind of really care about it because it's fucking cruel. Like and it's really archaic and horrible. But like I say, like it still raises its head from time to time. Like,
strange.
Will fox hunt, are they going to lift the ban on fox hunting? It's like, ugh.
Oh, gosh.
Thank God we don't have any stupid things like that here that we get all mad about. That's not the core of our political process at this point.
Right. During the long fox hunting scene, and finally we get to the end of it, and two more monks end up confronting Damien on a kind of blocked off bridge. They're closing in on him on either side, each with a dagger, and a horse that one of them is riding bucks one monk off the bridge, and the other gets mauled by a whole crowd of really cute dogs.
Yes.
But
I mean, because the Rottweilers look big and tough, but these are just like, these things came from like an Ann Getty shoot or something like that. Like they're just adorable.
It's like I want to lay on the ground and let them nuzzle me to death and like lick my face and stuff. But they don't look vicious at all. And again, like I guess this is only Damien is there on the bridge, so I think it's safe to assume that he's enacting these two deaths.
Yeah, he's doing his animal influence thing where like. Because there's a bit when he goes to the old ruins where the monks are waiting, where all the sheep kind of bolt, animals don't like him, right? Or he can kind of make them, especially dogs apparently, do what he wants them to do.
Yeah.
Well, and these were like the two most competent monks that they had.
He at least trapped him on a bridge.
Because they actually had a plan, and they had a cool thing where like they made they kind of swapped out a fox and then like hid the body around to try to lure him to a certain place. And I think that's why Brother Antonio is my favorite of the group. He's the bad boy.
You got a favorite monk? The bad boy?
Oh yeah. I mean, they're all great, but he's my favorite.
Can't you see he's got his Brother Antonio t-shirt on?
Remind me from the first film, and I'm doing this in the sake of you know, how these franchises, like the rules can shift, and not necessarily in a bad way, just like kind of tracking it. In the first film, was it said that Gregory Peck had to stab the Antichrist with all 7 daggers?
Yes.
Yep.
And
So
they
in
have
this-
to be put in like a really specific order and kind of position.
We've kind of abandoned that idea at this point, right?
Just stab him with one.
Just
Yeah.
stab him with one. And, you know, because that was my first thought after the hilarious TV station Curb Your Enthusiasm theme on the Over It death scene of him swinging. I was just like, well, there's one less dagger that can be used to stab Damien in the end. So we're down to 1.
If you're orthodox stabbing, you got to have all 7. But I think the reforms after Vatican II is just one knife.
It came back and just says it's just needed for 1.
Which, just real quick, we haven't mentioned this. This movie came out in 81, and it's supposed to be like 15 years after part 2.
Yes.
And I just like that kind of that soap opera-y, like, no, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Right.
It wouldn't be like the year 2000 or something this is set in.
Sure. And they do make it a point, like sometimes you could even just say like, it doesn't matter. But they do make it a point to call out 1984 when he was going to run for Senate. So they know within the context of making this, like what these dates are supposed to be too. So,
yeah, it's fine.
It's fine.
Satan ages differently.
Yeah,
I
that's
guess.
fine with me. Damien does have a weird connection with the reporter's son at this point, and he wipes some blood from the fox on his face to kind of, I guess, mark him or just be creepy or whatever.
Well, that's a whole thing, because I don't know anything about fox hunting, but the kid is told that he if they catch the fox, he'll get blooded, which they wipe some of the blood of the fox on your face. No, thank you. Yeah. I don't want a dead animal just rubbed on my face.
Welcome to the English aristocracy, everybody.
Yes.
And well, I mean, I like this because it seems the movie's really kind of going down this path that okay, well, Damien wants to corrupt this kid, Peter. Damien's going to corrupt him, so the kid's all excited to get blooded. And at the end, Damien rolls back in. He's like, "Oh, I got separated, but I killed the fox. The dogs took care of the fox." So there wasn't much left to bring back. And the kid's like, "Can I still get blooded?" And he's like, "Yeah, I got some for you." Starts wiping on his face, and the kid like grabs the hand and like controls the blood. It's a very like charged moment. And it was weird to see the kid kind of take control there and be like, no, I'm way into this.
Right.
More than you thought I'd be.
Yeah. It's less of a like, well, yeah, he's showing his intention instead of it's just Damien, like, you know, mind gaming him into it.
Yeah.
Damien takes a helicopter somewhere and then lands in front of a huge crowd of people. I looked it up, and there was like 450 extras on the set for this. And one of the things I did love is it's just one of those classic crowd scenes of you're taking people from all walks of life. So you've got different costumes on a ton of them. So you've got your 2 little Boy Scouts, you got your sailor.
This is my favorite bit of the movie. As they go round, and it's like there's a nurse, there's a priest, there's some Boy Scouts. They kill you dead every single time. It is so funny.
Yeah, it's just like I guess again he's reaching the youth there with the Boy Scouts. I did think it was a fun addition to have a Catholic priest in there too.
Yeah.
Might as well. I mean, you got that costume in the wardrobe department, so just go with that one.
Exactly.
Well, I didn't notice it the first time around, but there's also, those 2 young boys with the ball that will come up later. And I love that they have the ball with them. Like that's their weapon of choice. Yes. Like you're gonna
I mean, and this ends up just being like a classic satanic rallying speech here. I don't know if you've been to one, but it's just kind of like a pump you up to go kill babies speech.
I now command you to seek out and destroy the Nazarene child. Slay the Nazarene, and I shall reign forever.
The end of the world is about to be brought about, and you lucky few will be by my side.
Now, normally I would say this meeting could have been an email, but I do think in this particular case that they all needed to be there and experience that power.
That email would have been so boring. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Just like, dear acolytes, this is the day that you've all been waiting for. You know, how boring. Yeah, I want that Sam Neill gravitas there.
Yeah. Or just be like, like one of those like fundraising emails where it's like, danger, the Nazarene's coming. Yeah. Can you help us reach our goal of like a bunch of dead babies?
Checkbox, delete. Shit, I get texted about it. Yeah, exactly.
But here you do see Harvey Dean is is at this meeting and is right along with everyone saying, yes, we hear and obey. Yeah, I don't buy it. But I do like that he's there just like, yeah, totally, me too.
Yeah.
Well, it's like earlier we skipped over this because it's a weird little moment, but there's a part when they're going to the TV interview where they walk by a guy and Harvey Dean turns to Sam Neill and is like, you see that? And starts just like laying down all this homophobic shit. And Sam Neill's like, well, they're all God's creatures. Right. I just like, that was fascinating to me because it did feel like this toting like, hey, don't you hate that guy too? Like I do.
Oh, sure.
And, but it's also like, so wait, if Satan being like, hey, they're cool, is that a knock against them?
Right.
God.
What a minefield.
Or is it like, oh, actually, maybe he's cool. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Further proof of, siding with Satan in this situation here.
It's like in the Chucky series when the kid says, oh, what, you've got like trans kids. And he's like, I'm not a monster.
Oh, yes, exactly. Right. I may be a killer, but I'm not a monster, I think. Yeah. Right. Then we get this pretty magnificent montage of off-screen baby deaths. And I've mentioned on this podcast before where I like, depending on the circumstances, sometimes I think going after kids in horror movies, I'm not like morally against it, but sometimes it affects me a little bit more. Sometimes I think that it's just like gratuitous, like really trying hard to be dark and gritty. This was just funny as hell. I very little gravitas to this one. And of course, you just don't see the babies getting murdered each time.
It's great because those key members of the crowd that the camera has focused on, the nurse, the priest, the Boy Scouts, the football boys, you all then get to see them in action. So it's like, oh, okay, this wasn't just kind of the camera kind of lingering on random attendees. It's like, no. Now we get to see what they do. And they've all got their like special way of doing it. So the priest is christening a baby and drowns it.
I think that's what it's implied. But in front of everybody, right?
Yeah. And everyone just like, oh, well, this must be like secret priestly business. I better just let this play out.
Yeah, that's one of those things where like, I appreciate the filmmakers cutting away to a point, because, you want to keep getting it through and it like adds an atmosphere to it. But when you think about it for 2 seconds, if we're going to cut away, that means we also don't cut away from seeing people going like, hey, wait. That priest is holding that baby's head underneath that baptismal water a little bit long, And
then the nurse turns off the incubators. The football boys bump into Harvey's wife's friend and her pram like runs into traffic and gets hit by a car. And you just see this kind of like pool of blood like coming out of the pram. Right. And then the Boy Scouts, my personal favorite, thanks for asking, is they turn up at this lady's like front door and they say, "Morning, missus. We've come to do our good deed for the day."
That was terrifying.
How do they like? Okay, so what is implied in this good deed? Is it just like throwing the? It's not the football boys. It's the how do they kill the babies right there?
Don't
then
know.
What's the good deed?
I'm assuming like shoved Boy Scout cookies into its face or like
that's an all right way to go. I mean, if I had to pick, I'd pick that one maybe.
What else do Boy Scouts have? They have like those little
they have kerchiefs.
They have little kerchiefs and like
they have soapbox derby cars.
Do they in
pocket
the
knives?
States, do you call them woggles?
No, we definitely do not say woggles.
So the little bit that goes round the scarf to hold it into a little, that's called a woggle over here.
Jolene, where are you?
I don't know what that's called here because I was in the Boy Scouts and I don't remember what we called that thing.
You were a Boy Scout? How did I never know
I was
that?
A Boy Scout. Well, I was a Cub Scout, and then when I got to Boy Scouts, it's like, well, you have to go camping. I was like, no, I'm not doing that. So
I'm an indoor kid.
Yeah, I'm not going outside. So I did it. I went camping once. I went, no, thank you.
Right.
So, but so I do like that a lot of it is there's a lot of implied death in this because you don't with the exception of I think
it's pretty wacky.
Yeah, I mean like the drowning, like you just see the priest doing it. You just like the Boy Scouts, whatever. So it's still it's awful, but it keeps a distance from it that I think makes it kind of funny. Because at first, I wasn't real sure what was happening when I first watched it. I thought, like, did he just call the ball? Like, is that what happened?
Right.
No, it was the two gentlemen there.
Yeah, it made for pretty funny. But our journalist lady from the BBC ends up running a special report and saying that 17 babies have died in London. And you got to assume that this has been like in a period of a day, maybe 2 days. That's a lot of babies. That would arouse suspicion. I understand.
Especially if they were all born on the same day.
Yes.
And they're all boys.
And they're all boys. Yeah. A priest finally approaches the journalist, puts together that the boys have all been killed, who were born on March 24th between midnight and 6 a.m., tells her that it is definitely the Antichrist who is behind this.
Are you suggesting they've been murdered?
No, I am not. I'm stating it as a fact.
And who on earth would do such a thing?
He's born again, Miss Reynolds. And so is the Antichrist, the son of Satan, as foretold in the book of Revelation.
And she understandably doubts him, giving this speech about, I'm a journalist, I need proof, and that kind of stuff.
Well, yeah, I do like that as, because she's explained to Father DiCarlo that, like, I've got to be a doubting Thomas as a reporter. But then earlier, Damien is like, oh, you want to interview me and then have dinner and hang out? She's like, yeah, absolutely. Like, I don't care about any sort of objectivity. You're a hot dude.
Yeah,
exactly.
well, it's
Have
Sam
you
Neill.
seen Sam Neill?
Yeah,
Right.
I'm not saying it's bad. I'm just saying that's what happened.
Give him that satanic charisma bonus and, already with Sam Neill.
Yeah. It is funny that this movie came out like this, I think the same year as Possession. Because these are two very different performances from Sam Neill. But I like him in both.
Scream Queen, Sam Neill.
Yes.
Like, he is up there with like horror legends, horror
Absolutely.
icons.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
You've got Event Horizon, you've got Mouth of Madness.
Mm-hmm.
Amazing stuff.
Consider Jurassic Park if you want to veer into some monster horror there. Yeah.
Creature feature.
Harvey's wife finds out that he's been responsible for murdering all those babies. That's got to be a long walk home from the office. Like, you know that you're going to walk in to your wife saying, of all things, you've killed 17 babies. That's a go for the whiskey moment and listen.
What I love is that DiCarlo, having his soldiers all be stupidly killed, he's like, okay, knives aren't working. How about gossip? And so, because he's the one that tells her, and then he goes to DiCarlo's wife because like Peter is following Harvey Dean because Damien is just not buying that his son is should be put on the slab. And I guess DiCarlo visits his wife and is like, yeah, hey, look at these papers and all this stuff that shows how your husband killed a bunch of babies, or at least made it happen.
Right. Tells him to stay away from their kid. Damien chats with the journalist about the nature of evil, saying that evil is a very pure feeling, and wants to show her something in the stream, a fish called Old Nick, who she gets to point out, that's the name of Satan over here in Britain. It's like, yeah.
It's like, we got it, Kate.
We got it. Right, yeah. Thanks for the lack of subtext here, but it's okay. Yeah. Of course, she leans way into the stream to look for that fish and falls in. Was kind of surprised. He actually pulls her out. That was the twist.
Takes his time though, didn't he?
He did, because it shows him like turning around and almost like it implies that he's going to walk back up the hill.
Yeah.
But no, he reaches and pulls her out.
Well, and I also like that the extent of his satanic powers is, hey, look over there. Like that was it.
Do you think in that moment, and this is maybe a path to not go down, but in that moment, he's just like, well, if I do save her, she might sleep with me.
Exactly. It is the path to go down, because it's exactly what I was going to say. If he lets her drown, he doesn't get to fuck her.
Exactly. So he pulls her out. He's like, I know how we can end this story, actually. But if you think about it, leaping forward, that moment he wants to have sex with her is his undoing.
Yeah, that's true.
Yeah.
But it's like there's that shithead on Fox News, Jesse Waters, that like told a story about meeting his wife because he he flattened her tires. He like put the air out of her tires so he could give her a ride home.
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Yeah, and everyone on the panel was like, "That's awful." He's like, whatever.
She's my wife now.
Yeah.
Even the people at Fox News thought that was a little low, which tells you something.
Yeah. And so this is similar. It's like, I saved you from this danger I put you in.
Yeah.
You owe me now.
Right.
And he is rough as well.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was actually like the most upsetting scene, I think, is the sex scene.
Yeah, it's really upsetting. Like at first it's like, it's kind of hot. She's really into it.
Mm-hmm.
It's like, it's kind of missionary, but it looks hot.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. And then he's like, no. I'm the Antichrist. We don't do missionary. Including the title. Turn over. But like grabs her really roughly, is like kind of pushing her face like into the bed.
Yeah.
She's asking him to stop and he is not stopping. And then when she wakes up in the morning, you see like she's got like bruises and scratches like all over her. That was rough.
Mm-hmm. Especially seeing our lovely Sam Neill in that position. An actor, yes, but he's our Sam Neill.
Yeah. And then after all the abuse, she wakes up and finds him upstairs in his Black Mass area with the statue of Christ. So he had sex and then had to go talk to his dad about it, I guess. Which that sounds like a Cardi B lyric, like pussy's so good you got to tell your dad.
But I do love how she finds him. He's like he's naked and just like curled up into a ball. And so she does take this opportunity to examine his scalp, which she was told about by the priest. There's that 666 birthmark. Next up, Damien confronts Harvey with the help of Peter, the little boy, demands that Harvey kill his own son.
There's only one boy left, and that's your son. Destroy him or be destroyed.
Damien, for the love of God!
And God said unto Abraham, take now thy son, thine only Isaac, whom thou lovest, and offer him for a burnt offering.
Yeah, I love his parallel going there. And Harvey is understandably like, no, I didn't sign up for this. Are you kidding me?
Like, why are you referencing like, it's what people would do for God? We hate God, I thought.
Right.
But
sure.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
Got him there. So yeah, he and this I actually really like this scene, like with the weird baby in it. Yeah, not expecting that because the mom, Harvey's wife, is at home doing some ironing and gets,
of course she is. It's 1981.
Yeah,
what else would she be doing?
And she gets like hypnotized.
Hypno Dog is back.
Oh, yeah, that's right. Yeah, Hypno Dog is through the window. Like she sees the baby as this like horrible burnt husk.
Yeah, it's like an ashen mask or something.
It's terrifying. And the camera pans down to, reveal that, no, the baby's fine, but that's not how she sees it. Mm-hmm. And so we're, again, implied what happens next.
Yeah. She kind of goes into that trance and just starts walking towards it with an iron in her hand. Mm-hmm. How long would it take to kill a baby with an iron?
I haven't really thought about it.
Halfway through that question, I realized what I was asking.
That's if you could, that explains the whiteboard behind you now.
There's the sound clip for your Instagram.
Right, exactly. That is a question I've never asked before, and I don't know if it's been asked before. We're charting new ground on this show. Everybody, like and subscribe, and leave us a review. Anyway, so she grabs the iron, starts walking towards the baby. Harvey runs home, and there's Barbara, the wife, standing with a hot iron, and she just smacks him in the face with it. So she obviously learned something from the baby death and is going to carry this over to Harvey death.
Well, is it that she learned something, or is it just like the world's worst iron? Because when she hits him with it, because she just smacks him with it, and he falls down, and his face is like bruised and burnt.
Yeah.
That thing would just set fire to your clothes immediately.
Sure, yeah. And we're led to believe that he goes down from that one strike.
Yes. Yeah. Right. That's what we see, that she sneaks up on him and wangs him, which, I mean, good riddance to that toady.
Right. Sure.
But
totally.
I was just surprised that it did that much damage.
And
that
at least he died and all his wrinkles were gone.
Yes, that's true.
It's a different version of Botox then.
Yeah.
It's the 1981 version of Botox.
Yeah, let me just iron your face out, please. Priest shows up to the TV station and tells the journalist that Peter has become an apostle of Damien's. She runs to stop him.
Give me back my son, and I will lead you to the Christ child.
Where is he?
Give me back Peter first, and I'll take you to him.
Very well. You shall lead us both to the Nazarene.
And then Damien will give her back Peter. Now, I can't remember. Why does Damien think that she knows where the Nazarene is? Is it implied like why she has this knowledge?
She does take him to the right place, doesn't she? Does the priest tell her?
No, you're right. Yeah, because the priest is like, look, I got a plan.
Okay.
I'm good at these.
As you've been able to see from all of my success throughout this movie so far.
Right.
But they, it's like, but I need your help to get him there. I can't get him there, but you have to get him there.
Right.
With your boobs.
Yeah. You have something I don't.
Yeah. Right.
But I love that, that his plan, now that you mention it, his plan, like everyone else's, is like, and then I'll stab him. That's it. It's just get him somewhere and then I'll stab him. And sure enough, they go to this location. And I love this because when they get there, the priest's expert plan goes into action and he goes to stab him. And Damien just turns around and uses the kid as a human shield.
That was
just
fantastic.
No second thought, just natural as hell.
Yeah.
So Jim, how long do you think it would take to stab a child?
Well, depends on who's
Not
doing
very,
it.
according to this. Not if you're a hapless priest with a mystical dagger.
Yeah, he's got the pluses on that dagger, whereas an iron would just take, a lot of back and forth, a lot of holding down.
That's true.
Right. But yeah, I always, whenever somebody's used it as a human shield, I just think of Total Recall and the escalator sequence of holding the guys. But yeah, I absolutely love that. Peter gets stabbed. Damien goes just stomping around looking for the Christ child, screaming about it while lightning is flashing. I mean, this looks pretty cool. Like, I like an old, monastery crumbling type of thing as a location. While he's walking around, journalist who has a name that we haven't even deigned to say what her name is. Who? Kate, the journalist, stabs him in the back, and that's it. Hey, was that a little anticlimactic for you listeners? Yeah. Because that's how I felt during this sequence. Now, let's discuss this. There's something to be said about, maybe going back to what you were saying, John, about something supernatural becoming almost mundane and him getting stabbed in the back by this woman, and maybe a little revenge, maybe it could be a lot of different things. Was I hoping for a big, more grand spectacle? Yeah, I was.
Oh, from a movie called The Final Conflict?
Well, there you go. Yeah. Did it need to be? I'm not asking for an all like CGI fight in hell or heaven or anything like that, but like something just a little bit more than this man we've been with for 3 films. And again, played by Sam Neill, who I want to see do cool stuff. He just gets stabbed in the back, wanders around, and then dies. He sees Jesus at the end, I suppose. That's something.
Yeah, well, yeah. So it's the duplicity of man, the lies of Gregory Peck that got us into this, and the duplicity of women that will get us out of it.
You're welcome.
Yeah, right. Totally.
It's such a letdown.
Yeah.
I genuinely really like this film. I think it's got a little bit too much political chit chat. It's a little bit talky and like plot heavy at points, but on the whole, I think it's solid. I think it's a solid film. And you get to this, and it's just like, what? Like, that is it. And then, like you say, Jesus appears. You get the sound of like this baby gurgling, which I guess is baby Nazarene. And then there's like God rays, and then you kind of get like Jesus like silhouetted against the God rays, in his sort of classic like arms out floating above the ground type
the
pose.
altar, yeah.
And so it's like, okay, so I guess the message of all three of these films is God triumphs over evil. Like, I thought these were horror films. What the fuck is going on?
Well, it also just that he hasn't done anything. This is a big grandiose thing to just show up, be like, hey guys, oh, did you do all the work? Cool, that's fine too.
Right.
It's weird. It makes me think of, have you ever seen The Apple?
I have not. I want to though, but
an insane musical. And I don't want to spoil it because that's part of the fun, but just if you've seen The Apple, this bit made me think of the ending of The Apple, but I recommend that movie. It is out there. But it's sort of like this again, that Satan is doing all these machinations, trying to follow all these prophecies to stop this stuff. And it doesn't, like, it's going to happen anyway. Anything he does doesn't matter. He's just fumbling around trying to do his best, as evil as it might be, like the rest of us. And it is just, okay, it's very mundane and not that interesting.
I guess you could have gone with the angle of, the Nazarene is actually there, and there's like a little bit of like the Christ child is MacGuffin, where it's just like, is he going to actually kill the Christ baby, and like trying to save that back and forth. But I don't know. I guess the argument can be made that it's just like a simple act that takes down the Antichrist. Could be interesting, but it just didn't work here for me. Like,
no, I completely agree. They whiffed it.
I'm not sure what else they could have done, but I just kind of sat there with my mouth hanging open at the end of this.
Well, it's almost like in 2 as well, where it's just like, oh, and then she stabbed him. Because at the end of where she ends up being the whore of Babylon or whatever, and stabs him, that they just kept the surprise stabbing motif going.
Yeah. So the Omen trilogy comes to an end with, not a bang, but a bit of a whimper here for us. But
it's amazing. The movie ends with the second coming of Christ, that it's like, I don't care.
Yeah.
This is very boring.
So right. Yeah. Because the Nazarene is still out there, I suppose. And, this will ideally usher in a new like heavenly host or whatever, but
or some better commercials for Thorn Industries. Maybe he takes over Thorn. And,
right, there you go.
Make some cool commercials.
Yeah.
I invented the what's up, guys. Jesus.
All right. Well, before we go any further, let's honor our dead, please. American Ambassador, played by Robert Arden, shot in the face by shotgun while possessed. Brother Benito, played by Mark Boyle, burned alive while swinging from his ankles. Brother Mateus, played by Tommy Duggan, accidentally stabbed to death by Paulo and Martin. Brother Martin, played by Milos Creek, sealed in an underground passage. Brother Paulo, played by Louis Mahoney, sealed in an underground passage. Brother Antonio, played by Tony Vogel, bucked from horse, fell off bridge. Brother Simeon, played by Richard Oldfield, mauled to death by a pack of dogs. Unnamed male baby, hit by a car. Unnamed male baby, drowned off screen by one of Damien's followers. Unnamed male baby, oxygen turned off by one of Damien's followers. Unnamed male baby, drowned by a priest. Harvey Dean's baby, scalded with heating iron off-screen by Barbara Dean. Harvey Dean, played by Don Gordon, struck in the face with a hot iron. Peter Reynolds, played by Barnaby Holm, accidentally stabbed in the back by Father DeCarlo. Damien Thorne, played by Sam Neill, stabbed to death by Kate Reynolds. So this was, I did like this movie. It was pretty wacky, which was what I was hoping for out of Sam Neill as the Antichrist. Even if I did get wrong that I thought he was the president, twist ending on a factor that didn't happen. But there was still so much that I liked about it, and I've never seen a kill quite like that TV studio kill. But again, like, as I keep saying, I like bombastic religious horror. And I'm always a sucker for it. So yeah, I like this one. I do think it's the least of the three, if I were to rewatch these.
Yeah, I think it's, whereas like the first one, you have this sort of mundane life, or I mean, for being super rich people, this sort of everyday life that you're gradually coming to understand that there's this secret world, this secret power beyond you that's intrinsic to this world. This one, rather than being like, oh, Satan is among us, it really just felt more like, what if Satan was one of us? Just a stranger on the bus trying to make his way home. Like, it's just Sam Neill just kind of doing human stuff. And it would have been neat if there was a little bit more of that. I mean, I'm with you. Like, some of the kills and stuff are just ridiculous. And I agree with you, Becky, that there's just like a lot of the political chit chat, which I thought was a little much in 2 is even more here.
Yeah.
And so I think, like draining his power, it seemed like they kind of drained his power a bit. And so it was slightly less interesting, but I still think Sam Neill does a fantastic job.
Yeah. Agreed.
Yeah. He was not the letdown of this movie.
No.
He was at all. Yeah. I do like the idea of the Antichrist getting weaker as we go into a trilogy and it becoming more of a middle management position.
I was going to say, it's that middle management role. Like, it sucks the life out of all of us.
Even the devil.
Even the devil. Yeah.
Right.
He was meetinged to death.
Right. Well, and he even says, because when Jesus, the longer Jesus is around, it just saps his powers. You know, like the haters. Right. And you just can't listen to those, Damien.
Right. Get off social media, Damien.
Yeah, get off social media.
Yeah, you'll be okay. Right. Well, that leaves us with Omen 4, The Awakening, I believe it is called, and the remake from 2006. Becky, have you seen either of those two?
I have not.
Well, I just will be watching.
Liev Schreiber is in the remake as the Gregory Peck. I didn't know that. I know very little about the remake, so I'm going into these next two pretty blind.
That's like the one thing I know about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, we'll be watching them because we kind of have to. We've dug our own grave with this, but I hope you'll keep watching. Now that you're on this, you might as well just finish out.
I mean, this feels like a very natural opportunity for me to round it all out. So, yeah.
I was going to say, it does make you wonder what's next, because Damien's gone. Is it just like, do they find a new one, like Damien 2?
Well, it's an awakening, so
I guess that's
happens.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
I've got an odd feeling, I might be wrong, but I've got an odd feeling that the Antichrist is a girl in the 4th one.
Okay.
Twist.
What year did that come out? I don't even know. Well, probably in the 90s, so,
91.
1991 for Omen 4, little girl as Damien. Okay.
Yeah. And that one specifically written by producer Harvey Bernhard.
Aha.
So that will be interesting, because he's been shepherding this thing around from the beginning. So
yeah. Well, I think that's going to do it for Omen 3. Becky, thank you so much for joining us again. Which do you like better, Omen 3 or Saw Part 1? These are the 2 episodes that you've been on.
Ooh, Saw Part 1.
Yeah, exactly. I
can't even pretend that that's a difficult question.
Right. Sure. I always like to tease one of our other guests. Michael Holloway came on for Phantasm 2 or Saw 6. And I was like, you like them both equally, correct? He's like, good God, no, Phantasm 2 all the way. But anyway, where can people find your writing, find you talking about horror movies? I know you just published something for, was it Arrow Video recently?
That's right. Yeah. So the best place to find all of my stuff is on my social media. So I'm on Instagram and Twitter at Bunny Darke. So that's BUNNYDARKE. And I put links to everything up there. There's also in my bio, there's a link to my link tree, which houses all my stuff, including when I've got events coming up in the UK. I put like ticket links and stuff up there. So hopefully this year, pretty much definitely this year, Mike Munzer from The Evolution of Horror and I will be continuing to rampage around the country, taking our little horror screening shows to to audiences. So yeah, best place just to find everything is on socials. And yes, the thing for Arrow was, so I've just written a piece about Richard Kelly's Southland Tales.
Yes! That is a movie when I saw it, I hated it. And then like I watched it again and I just fell in love with it. Like I just did a total 180 on it.
Yeah.
It is such an odd beast.
It's so weird.
And I mean a beast as well,
Yes.
because it's just so like epic and dense and fucking odd. And it was one of the more difficult pieces that I've ever written, because when I first saw it, I hated it, and I watched it so I took on the commission before I'd even seen the film. But because like I'd heard, people sort of talk about how interesting it was, and I love Donnie Darko and blah, 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 blah. And so I was like, yeah, sure, I'll write something on Southland Tales for you. Send me a copy, which they did. And I put it on, I got to the end and it's really long and it was a real slog. And I was like, I have no idea what I'm going to write about this. Like I promised like 1,000 words and I have no clue. So I like went away, watched a bunch of extras and like documentaries, read a load of articles about it. And I think I just about managed to kind of hammer something together about this completely mad movie. So yeah, that's there's links to that on my social if anyone's interested.
Oh, that's I'm definitely going to check that out. That's awesome.
Yeah. And I know you also wrote a big piece about the Psycho franchise, which we covered about middle of last year. I think you covered the Arrow release of that
Yeah, when
too.
Arrow released their stunning 4-part box set, which I was like, just take my money. Actually, I didn't need to because they sent me that copy. Which was one of the perks of the job. Like, I'm not saying that's why I had volunteered to do that thing. But yeah, so it's about basically the evolution of Norman Bates kind of through the movies, from kind of whipped little houseboy to like weird sex symbol to kind of like, he takes on so many personas like throughout those 4 films, all of which I think pretty much are masterpieces. I absolutely love all 4 of the Psycho films. So yeah, that one was an absolute joy to write. So again, there's links for that on my socials.
Awesome. Yeah. And obviously I'm sure it is a financial barrier, but man, if there is ever a way to get you and Mike and company over to Portland, Oregon to do a Evolution of Horror show, like I would love to figure that out. But
we'll keep an eye on those British Airways sales and see what we can do.
Exactly, all the way over to Portland. So, all right. Well, thanks again for joining us, and everybody out there, you've come this far, so I expect everyone to just keep plowing forward. Check out Omen, The Awakening. We'll be back in a couple of weeks with that. And in the meantime, you can find us on Instagram at This May Hurt a Bit Pod, Hurt a Bit Pod on YouTube, and you can email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. All right, we'll see you in a couple of weeks, and take care. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
This has been a Caretaker Press production. It was produced by James Strayer and edited by John C. Myers. Logo by Ethan Kimberling and music by Michael Arthur Holloway, who you can find on Bandcamp. Follow us on Instagram at thismayhurtabitpod and email us at thismayhurtabitpod@gmail.com. Give us a 5-star review over on your favorite podcast app, and we'll see you next time.